What's up, guys, and welcome back to another interview here on Fightful Overbooked. It's been a while since I did an interview, but we have a very good one here today with a young Irish talent by the name of Alex Grayson. He's one of the new breed of Irish young wrestlers in OTT. He's been doing very well recently. He's been even wrestling Leighton Buzzard recently, and I'm very interested to talk to him about that. But how are you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing well. I don't know if it's super common knowledge, but I had to move house recently um, due to fan mail for a name I don't go by. Has been
Yeah.
harassing me. So once I kind of got that settled in, I've been doing better, but we're still getting there. Still getting there.
Uh, like I said there, just in the opener, the new Irish breed of wrestlers, you, Keen Noon, and CJ West, just yous are all kind of just starting to break through now, and you're getting more time in OTT. I'm just wondering, just some insight into what that's like being a young wrestler in Ireland in 2024.
Um, it's hopeful. It's really hopeful. Like I've been training for 8 years, so I've been around. And it kind of took me a little bit longer to kind of leave an impression on OTT. I'd originally made my debut right after COVID, and then unfortunately I ran into an injury and I was gone for pretty much over a year. Um, so there were some guys like Keane who were only coming in when I had made my way onto OTT, and then I got so sidelined that by the time I came back, people like Keane are now on OTT. So there's a little bit of a chip there to be like, well, I was here before you.
Yeah.
I have a little bit more experience than you do, and I'll show it. If I ever get to meet them on a show ring, that kind of way. But it's good. Like Irish wrestling, it feels pretty prosperous again. It's obviously after COVID, it was a bit rough for every wrestling promotion to kind of get its wheels moving. But I would say, kind of from from my return last year onwards, it's been pretty consistent. I feel like the shows have been on a really good roll.
Yeah. And just like I said there again in the intro, you did get a chance to wrestle Leighton Buzzard at Showdown in Sheriff Street. And in the build up to that match, you had a lot of social media promos. And while everyone in OTT kind of gets that like spotlight, you've had just an incredible amount of them, really, with CJ, with Leighton. Is that something that you really enjoy, like doing, like these promos that just like set the stage for your character, and then you get to show that in the ring, kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think if you get given the opportunity to have a platform to get yourself more familiar with people, whether you care their opinion or not, which is generally seems to be my case, you may as well take it the full opportunity. Especially then when you get given the likes of someone like Leighton Buzzard, who I had to poke the bear a little bit after the Rumble to make sure that I got what I felt was just. Um, I think getting promo time is incredibly important, and it's hard to gauge people's reactions and keep their interest now, especially with social media. So they're supposed to be kind of quick snippets, but I feel like if you have the opportunity and investment to build the story, you may as well take it. And being someone who's so involved in art to an extent, that's my bread and butter. Is to show what I'm about, and I think it's very important. I quite enjoyed how it turned out. And I think it sets me a little bit apart on OTT, the quality that I'm able to produce.
Yeah. And just circling back to Leighton, obviously he did end up suffering a very serious injury just recently. But in that match, obviously he's such a veteran of the scene. He's been in Japan, he's been in the UK, he's constantly over here in OTT. What did it mean to you to work with someone with that much kind of experience, and what did you learn from Leighton?
What I found was this was kind of probably my first import match, right? So I've never really worked anybody who I didn't know already. Whether or not I've trained with them or spent any time with them in the past, especially in Ireland, because we're a small enough scene, you kind of tend to know everyone or have touched in the ring and training at least once. But a lot of the time, that is the case. So there was a bit of nerves to prove that, I can hang with somebody the level of Leighton, who's just been in Japan. And, when I started wanting to be a wrestler, it boiled down to the junior heavyweights in Japan while Prince Devitt was still there. That's when I was like, well, I want to do wrestling. So, he was already on that path. And I was like, well, I can be a junior heavyweight. I can go to Japan. I can do all of this. I just haven't yet. So I learned that it doesn't matter how stressed you are on the day. As soon as I got in there with him, everything kind of went away. Everything calmed down. And I had to bring the intensity, and I felt that back from him in the ring. So I had to just try throw it back at him the best I can. And I think the intensity in that match is pretty consistent all the way through. It's unfortunate it wasn't a recorded show.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my best outings. And I'd like to think he brought a good bit out of me in that. Frustrations aside, I tend to get a bit of a hothead in the later stages of my encounters. So whether that works for me, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, but like, see, then you had this match with Leighton, and then you pivoted pretty quickly into this, let's say, rivalry with CJ West. And like I said, the promos on social media have been absolutely brilliant for me. It's like, personally for me, the best one was when you went to take a piss and he was lying down between your legs. That I personally, I laughed at that for a good 20 minutes just because it was such perfectly filmed and everything.
I'm glad some people found humor in it. He's harassing me in my daily life is the problem.
Yeah.
And everyone finds that too.
And you had that match with him at Supremacy, and like you said, Sheriff Street wasn't a taped show. Supremacy, on the other hand, like it's just a different ballgame. That's like a pay-per-view for OTT. Like, so was that a big moment for you getting to have that? I believe you opened the show, I believe. Yeah, so that's a big responsibility on any card. And you and CJ getting that chance, was that a big moment for both of you? And like, how did it make you feel after?
It's funny, a lot of my OTT matches have been in Kilnamana. My debut was in Kilnamana. I wrestled Limo in Kilnamana. And now I wrestled CJ there, and we had the Rumble there. A lot of my matches seem to be consistently there. So I feel pretty comfortable in Kilnamana now. I think the venue looks great when it's done. So I think that adds to it. I'm glad we were opener because you set the tone for the show, and I think when we went out and I realized the whole Alan thing had caught on as well as it did, that I had to prove my point throughout the match. And although I will have to give CJ credit. He is so blindingly frustrating that it works. Mm-hmm. There's a moment or two in that match where I am kind of on the ropes for a second because he's so dumb and so weird and so quirky. It's just blindsiding. It's almost like he's doing it on purpose. I'm starting to think he is doing it on purpose. I don't have proof, but I'm starting to think he's pissing me off purposely.
Yeah.
But it was a good moment to know that, well, although people booed me at the end of it, that I've proven my point at the start of the show, and I think it was a good match. I don't think the crowd are too happy when I took his legs out from underneath him. You can always hear the difference in noise. So people are pretty ecstatic about chanting Alan, but as soon as I take his leg out, there's this kind of noise that comes from the crowd. And that's, I know I've done it. This is it. He's not getting out of it. So yeah, it was a good start to the show for me. I don't know how he felt about it. You'd have to ask him.
And it's kind of funny. Like, usually with this kind of story that you have with CJ, that'd be it. That match's Supremacy would be it. But you actually did carry it over into OTT Challengers recently, and you were actually on Team Ireland. And for the people that don't really pay attention to these interviews that I have with Irish Talent, Irish people are very patriotic. I think you'll agree with that. We are very proud of our heritage. What did that like? Just being on, even though it wasn't really a massive stage, but did it mean like a significant amount to you to like be in that position that you were on, like Team Ireland? I know you had to still deal with CJ and he was the captain, but just for you.
Well, hang on. He claimed he was captain. We didn't have a designated captain until I got in the ring and he turned around with his own headband on his arm and goes, I'm captain. And then you can see on camera, we're having an argument about it because we didn't talk about this. You know, nobody was designated. He did this himself. I'll be honest. Me and Team Ireland don't have a good history. If you watched the contenders last year, where I had my personal issues with Liam, he was the captain of Team Ireland, and I cost Team Ireland because Liam's an idiot and he deserved to have a point proven on him. It's the same situation that ended up happening. It's not a traitor. There's no patriotism in my mind that will cement my personal issues with somebody else to be put aside.
Yeah.
You know that kind of way?
Yeah, I
Liam's a scumbag. Liam's a scumbag. He stole a win on me. I had to prove my point twice just to get another match. You know, if that cost Team Ireland, that's how it has to be. Unfortunately, it ended up being the same problem with CJ. Contenders, you know, is a stepping stone for some people, and you know, the likes of Luke Frettel gets to be on Team Ireland. And I know all the lads are real excited. Unfortunately, I was very disappointed that I was lumbered with CJ again. You know, but there's good talent on that team. And I really thought the good talent would carry through if they listened to me. Unfortunately, I'm on the floor shouting instructions and nobody listens. Callum Black chased me around the ring for a minute. Like, nobody thought of listening to me. And then we lost. I don't take responsibility for that. CJ was too busy dancing around. I had to get myself back involved to save us. I say it so clearly several times. I'm going to save us. Nobody came in and saved me. That's not my fault. Mm-hmm. So patriotism aside, Team Ireland is not a good winning streak on these contender shows.
And just circling back a little, like with CJ and with Limo, two lads who are very much like getting the crowd behind them, and they're a bit silly, they're a bit quirky. There is another man in OTT who fits that bill. Be Cool. Whenever I speak to anyone in the Irish scene about Be Cool, it's just nothing but praise and just respect and all that. And I'm just curious, like for you, you're dealing with CJ, you're dealing with Limo. Is Be Cool someone in the future that you want to like work with in like an advanced story, just to even just work with him?
Yeah, you have to give the devil his due. He is sometimes really infuriating. He can't switch off.
Yeah.
You think he's in the draw? I don't really know what's happening, but he has logic to his madness. If I could get the reaction he gets, good or bad, you know, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Be Cool is definitely underrated, as everybody says. But I would say he's the most popular wrestler in OTT for a reason. He's entertaining. He brings a good energy to the locker room. Again, as I said, sometimes you don't want to hear him. You know, I'm dealing with job sites like CJ West, you get pretty exhausted, and then Be Cool barges in and starts trying to tell jokes. And everyone just stares at him, and then he goes, and then he leaves. It's just something you got to put up with. But he means well, and he's a really good talent. I would love to do something with him, but whether or not in the moment I will want to be there is another question.
Completely.
I've dealt with a lot of nuisance so far. So who knows?
And you did mention them there. The draw have kind of had a stranglehold over Irish wrestling, especially OTT, for quite a while now. And for you, as someone who's coming up, and you see someone like Jay, who is amongst that class of the new young Irish wrestlers coming through, and he's starting to kind of make that jump from that kind of talent to a main eventer in OTT. Does that like inspire you personally? And do you have any interest in working with the Draw in the future? Because, as I said, they do have a stranglehold on Irish wrestling.
I mean, at the minute, if you want to be on the top of the card, you have to be involved with the Draw, it seems like. And I don't think that's a problem by any means.
Mm-hmm.
I find it funny. I've watched a couple of these interviews and people say that Jay is becoming a main event talent. Jay's been a main event talent for well over a year.
Great.
I've known Jay a really, really, really long time. But I do think me and Jay are destined to collide at some stage.
Yeah.
Behind scenes, me and Jay have always had good chemistry with and against each other. Like I said, everyone gets thrown into different scenarios, training as you come up. But Jay is someone I can see having a few words with down the line. Absolutely.
And you have been just kind of wrestling in Ireland throughout your career so far. Is there an interest to expand to the UK, the rest of Europe, possibly the US down the line? Obviously, now you're pretty focused with OTT, but down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Alex Grayson experience will start traveling at some stage. Personally, when I had a bad ankle injury, and that's what had sidelined me, so it was kind of making sure I felt comfortable before I came back. Then I came back, and now it's trying to cement my place in OTT. And I think once I start to feel that I'm on track with that, then I can start expanding out. I think the most important front to be at in Europe is still OTT, and it probably will always be OTT. So I think once I feel like I'm making a difference and I'm proving my point in saying why wrestling is an art and maybe people start to understand me a bit better, I can start expanding that a little bit. But it's always been on the horizon. I think it's only about time that places like Paris and the UK and all these other cities that have promotions that are putting on fairly good shows and they catch everyone's attention. The States is a little bit further away than I think people realize, and maybe that's just my thought process. But I think you got to conquer one continent at a time. So it's on the books in my head, but it's not my direct vision.
I get you. And you've mentioned it a couple of times now, your ankle injury that did sideline you for quite a while. And you did mention it there as well, the nerves and just kind of getting comfortable again. Has that been something that has took quite a while, or did it kind of was it kind of like riding a bike for you after a couple of shows?
Once I got back on shows, it was like riding a bike, but trying to get to that point, it was quite difficult. It's tendon damage, so nobody can tell you how long that's going to take to heal. At the minute, it feels perfect, and it's not holding back, which is great. But yeah, it's a bit of a mental game for a little while, to make sure that you're able to do things. Some of the lads will tell you, I surprise myself sometimes when I go, I don't think I can do this anymore, and then I do it, and I'm like, oh, look, I can't do it. It's one of those things. It's 80% mental at this stage. I would think when I came back, it was still pretty 50-50 on what I can physically do and what I mentally think I can do. But now it's pretty easy to get back in there and just not hesitate. I think it's all going to be smooth sailing from here on out, basically.
And you've mentioned a couple of times during this interview, you said that you view wrestling as an art, and it's got me thinking. And just from your perspective, just your opinion, is there a match for you that stands out? Just not even involving you, it doesn't have to be Irish, just in general. Is there a wrestling match for you that stands out as the perfect masterpiece in that regard then? Obviously, no limitations, just if there's a masterpiece of a wrestling match, in your opinion, does it exist?
Oh, it does. I would say there's several masterpieces throughout the years. Art is subjective and so is wrestling, right? So that goes hand in hand. I think there's masterpieces every couple of years now, it feels like. But like the one that instantly came to mind when you said that is Brennan Austin, WrestleMania 13. It's beautiful. There's no other way to describe it. I'm very controversially, I find Bret Hart very boring. I understand his why he's good and everything he brings, and that's not undercredit my top
Yeah.
brass on. He's fantastic. But I've never been a Brett fan, let's say. You know, if it was
Yeah.
Brett or Sean, I'd always pick Sean straight away. But Austin and Brett is an absolute masterpiece to watch.
Yeah.
And what brought me into wanting to be a professional wrestler was Japanese, New Japan, you know, junior heavyweight wrestling. Finn Balor is the best wrestler in the world and has been for 20 years. You can put many of his matches as an example of absolute art. You know, I can't think of one right now, but there's
Yeah.
so many good matches. His Wrestle Kingdom matches have always been probably top tier. Osprey is always killing it, always killing it. We've
Yeah.
had Osprey and OTT back and forth for so long. I've got to see some of these matches in front of me, you know. So the initial answer is Brett and Austin, which is such a generic answer. I feel like for someone who's so
Yeah.
finely required for art, but
Yeah.
it's good for a reason.
And you've mentioned him a couple of times, Finn Balor, Fergal Devitt, Prince Devitt. On WWE television now, after the draft, I don't know if you've been paying attention to it, but all the Irish stars are now on one brand. JD, Finn, Sheamus, Becky, and Lyra. They're all on the same brand. And they're all pretty popular in the States as well. For you, does that inspire you as someone who's just trying to kind of make your name on the scene? Does that, seeing those 5 Irish wrestlers just killing it in the biggest promotion in the world, does that inspire you a lot?
I think it'd be ridiculous to say it doesn't inspire you, you know,
Yeah,
especially when you're so heavily invested in what you do, right? Like this is a job at the end of the day. A lot of people say they have fun and they enjoy it, but it is a job, and it mentally tasks on you as a job. I find the way I always kind of explain my top press towards it is like I seen Sheamus on WWE television, but he's so big that I was just like I just never related to him in that
yeah,
sense. I'm like he seems like an American. That's how big he is. You know,
yeah.
he's a
I
big.
get you. I get you. He's a big man.
But I seen Fergal in Japan. Then I was like, oh, okay, well, he's closer to my size, and like he's from Bray, you know, like
Yeah,
and he can do all this
yeah,
incredible stuff, and he's the top dog. And then he went to WWE, and then you know getting to train with Jordan or JD, you know, Lyra, and spending time with them for years. JD was one of our main trainers in the school of Irish wrestling, um, and it was kind of mind blowing to see that he was being moved to the States, and then he was on Raw, and then he was partnered back up with Virgil or Finn. It really kind of proved to me that when I saw Finn in Japan, I went, I can do this. Like this is
yeah,
accessible. Like, this is possible. To then now seeing, you know, people I actually know there, I go,
yeah,
this is crazy. But this is super. Like Joe has built such a good standard for OTT and such a
yeah.
good path for everybody that if you put the hard enough work in and you show what you're capable of, you will get there 100%. Um, so it's real surreal sometimes when you just turn on the TV real casually and there's, you know,
Yeah.
there's Jordan. Like, I know him. You know,
Yeah. And
so it definitely motivated, and it's helped. I would find in the last, it's helped me mentally from returning to go. Well, look, this is where I want to be. So this is what I have to do.
and bringing it back to OTT as we start to wind down a bit. And ScrapperMania this year, ScrapperMania 8, you've got Barry who's going to be in the OTT World Title match no matter who's champion at that time. You're going to have Nick Nemeth. You're going to have Danhausen. There's a lot going on that card, but and I know it's what 5 months away now, still roughly. So is is there, if you could wrestle anyone, whether it's someone who's an OTT name or someone on the British scene perhaps that could come over for or in Wolverhampton, is there anyone that you would really like to face at ScrapperMania?
Yes, yes, I know.
Yeah,
There's many names you could say I'd love to wrestle Nick Nemeth. I mean, I feel like if there's anybody more suited to me it would be him.
Yeah.
You know, maybe at the minute from my standing, my opportunity isn't there for that. I proved myself with Leighton, absolutely, but I think I have a little bit further to go to prove myself to get someone that's big of a name, right?
Yeah.
But as I said, I've been around for a couple of years. That doesn't mean there isn't issues between people as time goes
Yeah.
on, you know. So some of those I'd like to resolve, definitely, at ScrapperMania. I would not want to wrestle CJ at ScrapperMania before anyone else asks. I want to be done with him. I want to push him out of my life and not have to look at him any further. But if I had to pick one person, I would say me and Terry Thatcher would absolutely tear the place down.
Oh, I like the thought. I like the sound of that. I very much like the sound of that.
Terry was somebody I would quite look up to.
Yeah.
And when I was getting kind of my foundation going, him and Haskins was everything. You know, they were fantastic, and Terry's a fantastic wrestler, and he's always been really good for advice. Paddy Morrow would have been my first suggestion, but we know that's out of the books.
Yeah.
But Terry had some attitude changes after COVID, and he decided to go off with detachment and kind of became a bit of a dick. So I never really personally forgave him, and I feel like he shouldn't judge me for decisions I've made. So
Yeah.
if that was ever to be confronted about, I think Stadium is the best place to do it.
Yeah, and like you did mention there, Terry, the OTT now, like that's the thing with OTT. There's so many veterans in OTT of just the Irish scene in general. You got Terry, you've got Sammy, you've got just there's just so much talent in OTT that has been there for a while. And for you, even though you've been around a while and you did just have the injury to slow your progress, is there still just that feeling of still learning from these veterans? Did you feel the desire to pick the brain a lot still and so on?
Oh, constantly. Like I've been training a long time, but there's some guys who are just at a standard totally different, and people adjust differently to training. You know, that kind of way. You have the likes of like Scotty Davis, who could probably wrestle a year and already be miles better than half of us. You know, some people
Yeah,
just naturally pick it. Others have to really work and grind and find their feet and figure out where they are. You never stop learning at wrestling, and if you want to be the perfect kind of artist, the only way to do it is look at different
yeah,
artists and see what you do and what you disagree with. There's so many veterans. It's really educational. You know, there's never a time I think where you're not learning something from watching the show alone. Never mind talking to people and picking people's brains. Sammy is a really good example of that as well. You know, look how long Sammy was around, and then he just one day something just clicked on him, and he said, "I've had enough of this funny crap. You know, I'm gonna
yeah,
wipe everyone out." And he did. He rose to the top of the card, and he's been dominant ever since. There's always someone's brain to pick. You know,
yeah.
always, always, always.
And I do just before we wrap things up, I do have one question for you. Obviously, Trent Seven is the OTT World Champion. He did win it back at Gaff Party, but there's been a lot made about him not being around. And
Mm.
I'm just wondering what your opinion is on that. And would you class yourself as someone that should be getting a shot down the line at Trent?
I think the main takeaway for the last year is what Sam has been screaming from the rooftops: is that the Irish talent need more opportunity.
Hmm.
And I think if anything, that could be hindering OTT a little bit. Right?
Yeah,
There's so much talent
yeah,
here available. Between us, we're constantly scrambling to make sure we're on the card, right? You got to prove a point, and
yeah,
you got to show Joe his investment. You
yeah,
know, the whole trend situation is bizarre. It's been weird to be at that show and watch people leave in anger. That Trent did it. You
yeah,
know, whether or not Jay is a little bit to blame, that's all up for argument as well. That's none of my business. That's the boys' business to sort out between them, him and Sam. But having a famous wrestler, yeah, you would want to be in there
yeah,
easily. As I said already, I think I have a little bit way to go. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm should be at the top of the card already. You
yeah,
know, there's a mountain to climb. There's poetry in earning that. you might take a couple of cheap shots here and there, but that's all part of the game. But yeah, I would like to think at some stage I could stand in the ring for the world title, whether it be Trent or whoever it is. I don't think it matters.
Thanks for this interview today, Alex. You've been absolutely fantastic. If do you want to just tell the people where they can find you on social media and upcoming bookings if you know when you're going to be wrestling next? I'm not sure if you have any active bookings right now.
Well, you can find me at Alex Grayson Pro on Twitter and Instagram. I don't really do much else social media wise. OTT is the only thing to keep your eye out on at the minute. We have a show coming up in May with Brian Kendrick on the card, so I could be wrestling Brian Kendrick, who
knows? Once again, Alex, thanks for joining me here today, guys. If you are new to Fightful Overbooked, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and comment who you want to see me interview in the Irish and UK scene. I'm going to be looking to jump back into these interviews after a busy WrestleMania month. And yeah, guys, see you all in the next one.